Okay, we're back once again for our Thursday reading with The Sims. Um, yes, I am a couple of minutes late off of the schedule, but technical difficulties happened. And once again, I'm reading The Misadventures of Catastrophe, which is one of my Miraculous Ladybug fanfiction about it's Chloe Net Endgame. It's about Chloe being the cat hero instead of Adrian, and it's almost entirely from Chloe's perspective. And fun fact, I actually had some difficulty writing it in the first couple of chapters because writing bullies is not my strong suit. And loading, I can get my sim reading and we can get going. Yes, computer, I know that I need to update my drivers. It takes too long, and if I were to update it, I may as well just skip the stream today. If this game doesn't start cooperating, I will skip the stream today. Okay, there we go. Stuff that happens with The Sims. Yeah. All right. So while it's loading, I am gonna go ahead and start reading. We are on chapter 3, which is Princess Fragrance. The summary is Chloe makes discoveries, not all of them good. And oh, she's back. Static, what the fuck is that? Oh. Someone opened up and read my newspapers without. Pretty sure I've already canceled the newspaper delivery, but. school day had been interrupted again by an amateur magician in their school getting told off by his strict teacher. For some reason, he was bent on making the Eiffel Tower disappear. It was the third week of Hawkmoth's terrorism, and Chloe was glad that her teachers were afraid to discipline her for poor attendance because of her father's position. In the middle of the fight, it started raining, and something felt off about it. She tried to ignore it as she and Ladybug struggled against the magician. Finally, they defeated the Akuma and parted ways. As if the rain had been on a timer, when she dropped her transformation and went to feed Flag, the weather cleared up. Chloe headed for the school and saw Marinette, of all people, hurrying to the building as well. Shocked, Chloe paused outside the school. Okay. Okay. You don't think... She mumbled. No, there's no way she could be her. She shook off the suspicion that Marinette might be Ladybug and hurried to class. Marinette was making a scene at the front of the class, so Chloe slipped in while the teacher was distracted. Accidentally locked yourself in the bathroom again, Madame Mendeleev accused Marinette, and the girl stammered out a lame excuse about taking a dog to the vet. The stench of cheap perfume filled the room. Thank you, Rose, but I don't think our classroom needs extra refreshing. Talk about fish funk, Chloe muttered as Marinette made her way to her seat. She looked at the girl as subtly as she could. Marinette fit some of the physical notes of Ladybug with her dark hair and blue eyes. The most suspicious thing was that Marinette had suddenly started skipping classes and being abnormally late, making poor excuses and running out at the same time Chloe had to get away to transform to help Ladybug. The teacher came back to her desk, instructing Rose to go to the principal's office. The girl packed her things and left the room while the teacher gave a demonstration on lab safety using Rose's perfume. Chloe almost felt sorry for Rose, simply because that particular teacher had a tendency to overreact. Chloe found herself staring at Marinette, hoping that she was wrong to suspect her. If she was right, then that would make things difficult on every front. After classes let out, Chloe headed for her car, talking to Sabrina about her schedule for the afternoon. She was supposed to join her father for a press conference in the hotel's ballroom welcoming Prince Ali to the city. She heard something like a squeak or a groan by her foot as she walked, and she looked to see what the noise was. A small red creature that nearly looked like a plush doll with black spots on its head was on the ground. Having one of her own, she immediately recognized it as a Kwame, despite the little red creature going rigid. She stooped to pick it up, looking around to see if she could spot anyone looking for something nearby. No one seemed that interested, but Sabrina reached out to touch the Kwame, questioning it. Chloe gave one of her fake laughs and stuffed the creature into her purse with Flag. I'll bet Prince Ali will never have seen a toy like that before, and he'll be so impressed by both it and me that he'll forget all about those sick kids, she said dramatically, quickening her pace to the car. Did I hear you say Prince Ali? Rose called, hurrying to catch up with her. Chloe grimaced as she was about to open the car door. Fish funk, she muttered, turning to face her classmate. Not to you. Prince Ali's staying at Chloe's dad's hotel, Sabrina informed everyone within earshot. I'm going to meet him right now, Chloe sighed. Of course, Le Grand Paris is the only hotel fit for a prince. Well, please, could you give him a special letter from me? Rose held out a rancid-smelling envelope, and Chloe resisted the urge to cover her nose as she pushed it away. No way I'm subjecting the prince to that fish funk. Do us all a favor and buy some perfume that doesn't smell like a fish market. She snapped and got in the car. Drive! She rolled up the privacy window of the limo just as a small sneeze came from her purse. Whoa, Tiki, are you okay? She heard Flag ask. So your name's Tiki? Chloe asked, opening her purse. Something was in the rain, the red Kwame mumbled. So you're Catastrophe? Yes, and if something was in the rain, how are you sick but not Flag? She questioned, gently pulling Tiki out of her bag. And is there some way to help you get better? Because if you're sick, then Ladybug can't. Oh my god, I have to get you back to Ladybug ASAP. One issue at a time, kid. Flag laughed. Obviously, I'm just tougher than the little sugar cube. Don't. Tiki was cut off by a sharp sneeze. Call me Sugar Cube. But yeah, I don't know otherwise, Flag shrugged. I do know a place we can take her to get healed. We can't, Tiki argued. I can keep a secret, Chloe sighed. We have to get you healed and then back to Ladybug. Hopefully no one else will get akumatized today and we can somehow get you back to her without me finding out where Ladybug is. Right, Flag agreed. He gave her an address and she started to roll down the window. Does this guy do anything for humans, like massage therapy or acupuncture? Chloe asked, contemplating how to get there. Chakra reading, Flag provided. Great, she sighed. Now hide so you two aren't seen when I roll the window down. The two Kwame nodded and ducked out of sight as she rolled the window down and pulled out her phone to look like she'd been on it. I'm not going to the press conference. I just got word about a supposedly amazing masseuse, and he's only free this afternoon. She gave the address and rolled the window back up before calling her father. It took some convincing to get out of the press conference, but her father eventually caved to her whim and the assurance that the prince could meet her later on. She hung up just as the car pulled up to a building. She quickly got out and started into the building. A horn beeped behind her and she turned. I'll be waiting here, mademoiselle, the driver assured her. That won't be necessary. The weather is nice now, so I'll just walk home when I'm done here. I'll call if I change my mind, she told him firmly, and he drove away. Honestly. Now, where is this guy's shop? Flag pointed the way, and she knocked when they arrived. An old-sounding voice called for her to enter, and she went inside, closing the door behind herself. What can I do for you? A familiar old man asked from the center of the living area. My name is Chloe Bourgeois, and I was told you could help me. You see, I found this really exotic animal, and she's sick. She pulled Tiki out of her purse. There aren't any vets in the area that can treat this particular type of creature, so I was hoping you could help. Why, yes, I can be of assistance. Please, have some tea while I get my things. He started for the wall. She watched him carefully. She recognized him from the first day of school when she helped him after he'd fallen and everyone around was ignoring or making his situation worse. There was hot tea ready on the table, so she helped herself. It tasted different, but she assumed it was some Chinese blend and it actually tasted nice. So she wasn't about to insult it. I was also wondering, I heard that you also do acupuncture? My massage therapist recently moved and we haven't found anyone else just yet. She started, not exactly lying about the masseuse. Even with Ladybug's power repairing everything, her muscles were tighter than ever with all the exercise and it was not pleasant sitting all day at school. I perform chakra readings, actually. After I heal your pet, I can see what needs to be done for you, he offered, pulling a gong that looked much too heavy for a man his age to lift off the stand. Please, place her on that pillow and we will begin. Chloe nodded and put the teacup down to do as instructed. She watched curiously as he performed some kind of ritual over Tiki. She almost said something when it seemed like Tiki was getting worse rather than better. But then the little red Kwame suddenly gasped and flew into the air, grinning. Oh, thank you! Chloe gasped when Tiki actually squeezed her arm in confirmation that she was okay. She smiled a little and turned to the old man, who was putting the gong away. It's no problem. Now, you're reading. You can put your bag on the hook there, and please lay on this mat face down, he said, indicating the mat the pillow was sitting on. Chloe nodded and followed his instructions, letting Tiki fly into her purse with Flag. For good measure, she also put her phone in the bag. Flag and Tiki talked quietly in Chloe's bag while the Guardian did the reading. The only thing stopping Flag from leaving their hiding spot was that he hadn't told Chloe that they were in with the Guardian, and the old man knew exactly who she was and what Tiki was. He'd clearly been given out in a hurry. He'd almost hoped that when he realized that she was a blonde, that he would be in a familiar home with Dusu and Pollen to keep him company. But, as was usual with a miraculous that was only complementary to the one required for his situation, he'd been put with a hot-headed wild card. Chloe's phone went off with an alert from that new Crime Alert app that came out when Hawkmoth first appeared. Flag looked at Tiki, worried. She nodded and they checked the alert. The hotel was under attack by an Akuma with hypnotizing perfume. You don't think, Tiki muttered. It has to be Rose. Flag groaned. I'd yell at her over this, but she actually wasn't that mean, I thought. Yet, calling her perfume fish funk shouldn't be enough to get her that worked up. Something must have happened after we were in the car, Tiki agreed. Do you think we should warn her? We're not supposed to reveal anything to protect our holders, but they're almost done, Flag sighed, tapping a button on the app. This Princess Fragrance doesn't seem like much of a threat just yet. She's just after the prince and... Oh no. What? Tiki looked at the app. She's after Chloe too? This is the third one. I know, but the second time that was someone actually mad at her father and aiming at her to get to him, Plague explained. And Ivan, my holder told me that Chloe had been targeted by him when he was turned back into Cœur de Père. She drew attention to herself to save her classmates from being trampled, he defended. Come back later this week, they heard Fu tell Chloe. Your energies are very out of balance. Too out of balance to align in one session. Thank you. I already feel better anyways. How much do I owe you? No charge for you, miss. Oh, okay then. Thanks again, Chloe said lightly, picking up the bag and hurrying out. It was several minutes before she opened her purse to let them out. The Kwame started talking together, trying to relay two different messages at the same time. Whoa, calm down, you two, one at a time. Someone got hypnotized while you were busy, Pike said. Hypnotic perfume, she's after you and Prince Ali. Me? Don't tell me Rose got her panties in a twist over the perfume. I could have been a lot meaner about that fish funk. We need to find Ladybug, Tiki reminded them. We don't have time for a complicated get me close so no one sees and you don't find out who she is plan. If she saw you pick me up or someone pointed her in that direction, she probably went to the hotel to get me back from you. Right, and if it's perfume, we need to make a pit stop. Claws out, she called, and Plague was sucked into the ring. Marinette was in a panic. She had no idea where her Kwame was, and with an Akuma to capture, Ladybug was needed. Sabrina had seen Chloe pick up and pocket a toy that fit Tiki's description, and she was heading for the press conference at the hotel. When she got to the hotel and managed to get inside, there was no sign of Chloe, and moments after she started her search, a transformed Rose sauntered in. She managed to distract the new villain long enough for the mayor to get the prince to safety, she hoped. She frustrated the villain enough to be chased to the roof, where she ended up cornered. She rolled away from a shot of terribly scented perfume, trying to get away without being hit. She finally dove into the pool, trying to hold her breath as long as she could. When she was just about out of air, she saw a familiar clawed hand reaching into the water. She took the hand and Catastrophe pulled her out of the water. Are you all right? The blonde asked her as she caught her breath. Yes, where's Princess Fragrance? She got bored with you and flew away when I got here. That was really brave, letting her corner you like that. Thanks, Marinette mumbled, looking for a towel. One was dropped onto her head, and she peeked out from under it to see Catastrophe smiling a little at her. Here you go. It's not the best weather for swimming, so you should dry off quickly. Ladybug and I will take things from here, she said lightly before vaulting away. Marinette took a minute to dry off a bit with the towel, and she spotted Tiki floating nearby, perfectly healthy. Tiki! But how? It's a long story, the Kwami said lightly. Catastrophe asked me to bring this to you. She produced the nose plug. Catastrophe? But it was Chloe who picked you up. I managed to get away from her without being seen, and I got to the healer on my own. Then, when I was looking for you, Catastrophe found me and gave me this nose plug for you, so you don't get hypnotized. Okay, she took the nose plug. I was so worried about you. I know, but we have an Akuma to capture? Right, spots on. Catastrophe paused in her pursuit of the villain. She'd been right in her suspicions about Marinette after all, and that complicated everything. She shook her head, trying to keep it from bothering her. If she changed how she treated Ladybug, she could give away that she knew who her partner really was, or worse, her own identity. She had to focus on helping get Rose back to normal. She spotted her quarry and the silver collar that the villain was chasing. Gotcha, she muttered, placing her staff in the villain's path to vault forward. With the nose plug, she wasn't worried about getting hit by the perfume, so she jumped right in, aiming to give the car some time to get away. You know, there are better ways to get a guy's attention. How dare you? Princess Fragrance scoffed. Do you know who I am? Yeah, you're Rose Laviant, student at l'École François Dupont. Most recent victim of our local superpower terrorist, she rattled off. Honestly, he's just using you, kid. She was covered in a cloud of pink perfume smoke. She grimaced and waved it off. How? I'm not about to let you attack a foreign dignitary, Catastrophe sighed, pointing to the nose plug protecting her from the hypnotic smell. She spotted red in the sky and smiled a little. Maybe we can talk about what's got you in such a foul mood? I have a better idea, the villain shouted, raising her perfume bottle to the sky. I'll just turn the entire city into an army to serve me and the prince. Catastrophe moved to try and take her down, but Princess Fragrance leapt into the air. The villain landed on a roof and started spraying her perfume into the sky. Catastrophe! The fireworks display! Ladybug shouted as she headed for the roof Princess Fragrance was on. The red heroine tackled the villain to the ground and tried to grab the bottle from her. Catastrophe gauged her jump and found that the barge with fireworks was conveniently in range. She made the jump, using her staff to make it easier. Cataclysm! She shouted in midair, summoning her power and striking the launch mechanism when she landed on the barge. The display malfunctioned and started firing explosives into the cloud of perfume. The flammable gas exploded above the city, and Catastrophe went to help Ladybug. Lucky charm! Ladybug shouted just as Catastrophe joined her. A spotted balloon fell into Ladybug's hand. Think you can hold her off while I figure this out? At your service, Catastrophe said lightly, moving to occupy the enemy with her staff. Got it! A tube flew into Catastrophe's hand, and she realized what the plan was. She ducked and got in close enough to use the makeshift cork got in close enough to shove the makeshift cork into the opening of the perfume bottle. Princess Fragrance jumped back, shouting in rage. She tried to unplug her weapon when Ladybug's yo-yo flew in and hooked around the object. Ladybug tugged on the yo-yo and slammed the bottle on the ground to release the Akuma. She then captured the butterfly and purified it. After Ladybug reversed everything, the duo fist bumped and Catastrophe carried Rose to the ground. Ladybug, do you have time to find or contact the mayor and let him know everything's taken care of and the prince is safe? I'll take care of the girl. All right. Ladybug agreed and flew away. What happened? Rose asked softly. That's what I was about to ask you. Catastrophe sighed. What happened while you were under Hawkmoth's control doesn't matter. He took advantage of you being upset about something Chloe Bourgeois did? She's terrible, making fun of my perfume and then having Sabrina tear up my letter because I'd scented it. Did she instruct Sabrina to do that? Well, no. She was in such a hurry to get to the press conference, she just said she wouldn't subject the prince to my fish funk and got in her car. Sabrina grabbed the letter when she was completely gone. So maybe this was more of a misunderstanding, Catastrophe suggested before using her baton as a phone to call for a car. When the car was confirmed, she touched Rose's shoulder gently. There's a car on the way to take you home. I have to get going, but you take care. You don't understand, Catastrophe, Rose argued. Chloe is the meanest person in my school, and Sabrina doesn't do anything unless Chloe tells her to. Catastrophe started to say something in her own defense, but she knew that doing that would reveal her identity, since her hero persona shouldn't have met her civilian self. You know them better than I would, she said. She sighed. Have a better day. She turned and vaulted away, considering what she'd just been told. She landed in an alley near the Dupenchang bakery and dropped her transformation. Plag immediately started whining about being hungry. Hush, Plag. We'll grab something from the bakery, and I've got some errands to run. She sighed. She started to leave the alley, but saw Ladybug land on the roof, so she ducked back into hiding to make sure Marinette wouldn't spot her coming out of a random alley. Chloe had spent the rest of the day making arrangements. The prince was in Paris for the whole week for an international conference, so she managed to pull together a quick contest. The prince thought it was a wonderful idea, and his chaperone agreed that it would be good to get to know citizens of other countries outside of charity events. She also checked her class calendar to find that Rose's birthday was coming up. So she went and bought some decent-smelling perfume at a store she figured Rose could afford. She had her butler write the note so her handwriting wouldn't be recognized, wishing her a happy birthday. The next morning, the prince came to the school with Chloe, and she put the perfume on Rose's desk before sitting down in her own seat, offering Sabrina's seat to the prince. When the whole class had arrived, she stood and introduced the prince. Everyone, this is Prince Ali of the Kingdom of Atu. He's visiting for the UN conference and several charity events this week, she said lightly. Prince, would you like to say a few words? Yes, the prince said lightly. I will be in need of a guide through Paris during my limited free time here. Several members of the class perked up at his suggestion. Miss Bourgeois suggested that I select a guide from her class. To do so, I will be collecting short stories from you all this afternoon. The one I enjoyed most shall be my guide this week. I will also be using the letters as a creative writing grade, Madame Bustier added. We've been discussing the structure of short stories this week, Prince Ali, so I hope you don't mind. Not at all. I was told this was your topic at the moment, and I would not want to disrupt your lessons. I have an event to get to, but I look forward to spending this afternoon reading your works. The prince left with his chaperone, and everyone began writing. When the class ended, the stories were turned in, and Chloe heard Rose gushing to Julika about both the contest and the mystery birthday gift. Sorry, hiccup. She followed to see if Rose liked the perfume, and she wasn't disappointed. Not only did Rose like the scent, but everyone immediately started complimenting her on it. And that is the end of this chapter. Ba, 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 ba. Okay, Chapter 4, Anyman. Chloe dives headfirst into change, and Kim causes trouble. And I will start reading this chapter in just a second. Forgot to put books out of my inventory. Okay, there we go. Okay. It started with a project for our biology, meant to do alone. Chloe knew that Sabrina would automatically choose 2 separate assignments, one for herself and one for Chloe, but she wanted to at least try to do it for herself. She told Sabrina as much, but her friend was stubborn and confused by the decision, so she would have to beat Sabrina to turning in the assignment. It was a challenge that Chloe never would have decided to attempt if Clyde hadn't been pestering her over making Sabrina do all of her assignments. Sure, it had started as a we're friends and friends help each other out manipulation, where she put in just in little effort to help Sabrina, and the girl had been shy and reserved enough to never argue or realize what was going on. But now it was just habit. Occasionally, Chloe made excuses about being busy to placate Sabrina for assignments they should be working on together. And she would always buy something to bribe and give evidence to her claims. The worst of it was that she knew her teachers would realize what was going on with the 2 girls if they hadn't already when Chloe turned in her own work, and it was terrible because she'd never written a report for herself. The first step was to do research. The assignment was to pick an animal and write a report on its habits and way of living. A PowerPoint presentation was optional for extra credit. Chloe had decided not to go for the extra embarrassment of giving a poorly made presentation, even though it would enhance her grade. She was anticipating failing the assignment anyways, since it was her first attempt at doing her own work, since homework assignments had shifted from coloring within the lines of a coloring book to any sort of actual work. She bought a notebook and went to the zoo. They had a new panther, and she figured a cat would be easy enough to do research on. It was her alter ego's theme animal after all. So she set to work. She found a bench near the panther paddock and watched it, taking notes in her new notebook. "Doing a research project, miss?" a male voice asked, and she looked to see one of the zookeepers standing over her. "Yes, for biology. Are you over at this paddock?" she asked, hoping she could get some information on how the animal lived in the wild. He nodded and sat beside her. "Yes, I'm about to feed her, but I can spare some time if you have questions." "Thank you," she mumbled. Then she launched into some questions that she thought would be relevant. He answered diligently, and she took notes. When she ran out of questions, she noticed the panther was pacing by a door in the paddock. "I think she wants something." "You're right. She was rescued from a collector who mistreated her, and she prefers to eat in private," the zookeeper explained, standing. "She must be getting impatient for dinner." "Well, I'll let you get back to your job." "Thank you for taking the time to answer my questions," Chloe said lightly. Being nice seemed to be becoming easier with Mr. Chan doing those chakra readings. The weather was nice, so she decided to roam the zoo. She spotted Marinette sitting on a bench and talking to someone in her Bluetooth, so she went to a different area. She found a picnic table and started looking over her notes. She vaguely heard Kim's voice arguing with someone. Chloe grumbled about Akumas and went to investigate. Kim was taunting the panther and arguing with the zookeeper. The panther was ignoring her food and growling at Kim. This could be worse than an Akuma. Your friend's right, kiddo. The zookeeper tried to defuse the situation, putting a comforting hand on the panther's back. Now please leave. She needs peace and quiet while she eats, and you're stressing her out. Aw, Kim taunted. Stressed out, are we, Miss Panthy? You're talking about a wild animal, dude. Hey, Chloe snapped, getting between Kim and the glass. Didn't you hear him? Animals have feelings too, but I guess an idiot like you can't realize that. Get out, or I'll call the entire police force down on you. She pulled her phone out and started dialing. Come on, Max, Kim relented, putting up a hand. Let's leave the poor little kitty alone with his angry babysitters. He left with Max, laughing. Chloe put her phone away and sighed. I'm sorry about him, and I'll let you get back to dinner. She sighed. With that disaster averted, she went back about her work on homework. She heard yelling and started to investigate. Alia was hiding behind a tree, yelling and gesturing at someone on her Bluetooth. No, no, Alia shouted. It's not awesome. I can fix up a date for you guys, she heard Marinette's voice, and looked to see that Nino had joined Marinette on the bench. Chloe almost laughed at the situation, particularly when she was sure that she saw Adrian hiding in a bush nearby. The two hidden teens must have been coaching the other two through a date, like Adrian especially had any experience with romance. She shook her head and turned away from the scene, ready to really get back to work on her homework. She looked up to see a black butterfly fluttering around. Oh no, she gasped, following it. It flew to the panther paddock and phased through the glass that the zookeeper and the panther were behind. Seriously, over a kid being a jerk? She groaned and ducked into a nearby building. She glanced around for cameras and witnesses before calling for her transformation. All right, first things first, let Marinette know something's going on, then evacuate the zoo. She hurried back to the group of her classmates. You kids need to get out of here and find shelter. There's an Akuma on the loose. Seriously? Nino gasped, standing up. Yes, get to safety. Ladybug and I will take care of this quickly, and you can get back to your date, she said lightly before vaulting away. Heading for the security station to let the faculty know to start the evacuation process. She then went to find Kim and Max. She found Max fleeing from a stampede of animals. She got between the boy and the animals, and the stampede abruptly stopped. On Earth? She shrugged off her confusion and looked to see that Max had escaped. She nodded a little and went to find Kim. Ladybug joined her. You're on the scene early, Catastrophe, she said lightly. I was in the area and spotted a butterfly go through some glass. She explained, I didn't see the target, but if these animals are an indicator, one of the zookeepers got targeted. That makes sense. So let's get this taken care of, Ladybug agreed. Catastrophe almost said that the villain would probably be a panther, but when she gave her presentation on panthers, Marinette might make the connection. It was dangerous enough for one of them to know who the other's identity, and even more so if they both knew. She also couldn't say that she thought the villain might go after Kim, so she did what she could and went after the boy herself. It's down to just the two of us, kiddo, the panther growled as she spotted Kim on the bridge after going towards the school, trying to outrun a panther with purple eyes. She recognized the bracelet on one of its paws, and she started forward as Kim stumbled and fell. And then there was one. He started to pounce, but Ladybug caught him with her yo-yo. She helped Kim up and put the tracker on his back. Put a tracker on his back. Hurry, go and hide in the first building you come to, she told him, pushing him towards the other side of the bridge. He took the prompt and broke into a sprint just as the panther transformed into an eagle and escaped. Oh, great. He's a shapeshifter? Ladybug groaned. Where's Kim? Well, let's see. Catastrophe sighed, opening up her baton to use the computer display and view the location of her tracker. If it weren't for the fact that Kim had been Ivan's original target and he'd actually hassled a few others into becoming akumatized, she would have reminded Marinette to be careful who she called by name. But they'd had to rescue his stupid, muscly self several times. Nice one, Ladybug commented, and they headed for his location. She wasn't surprised to see that it was Marinette's family bakery. We need a plan. Since he can shapeshift, he might slip into the building when he sniffs out his prey. We could use something with the scent strongly on it as bait, she suggested. They would also have to mask their own scent somehow. Scent. She gasped a little and Ladybug looked at her. What's wrong? Something wrong, Catastrophe? She asked, and Catastrophe shook her head. No, I just realized something. We'll have to mask our own scents for baiting him to work. She deflected. She had realized why the stampede stopped in front of her. They must have somehow known her scent, and the zookeeper would possibly consider her an ally, since she'd stepped in to stop Kim from upsetting the panther. That could be problematic. I do need to find a restroom, though. Too much food court food earlier. That's inconvenient, but I'm sure the bakery owners have a restroom you can use. Right, she laughed, and they went inside. Naturally, the family had a moment of recognition for the heroines entering their establishment. I know the situation is dire, but I have a feminine emergency, she said softly to Marinette's mother. The woman nodded fervently and led her to a loft and then to the attached bathroom while Ladybug explained the situation to the baker. I'm sure Marinette won't mind if you use some of her pads or tampons, the Ladybug said gently. The woman said gently. Ladybug. Wrong female. You don't need anything for cramps? Thank you very much, madame, but I'm fine as far as cramps are concerned, she assured her, and the woman went back downstairs. Catastrophe went into the restroom and dropped her transformation. Okay, what's the deal? Plague griped. Is there any way my scent can be changed? I met the zookeeper and the animals reacted to my scent, she told him. Did you introduce yourself to him? Well, no, but he looked familiar anyways. I think he's Alia's father. I know he won't remember, but I can't take the chance, especially since I'm in Ladybug's bathroom. Right, yeah. I can make you smell different. Just focus on that when you transform. He groaned. Thank you, Plague. I just don't want to take any chances. She sighed. He rolled his eyes. All right. Claws out. She transformed again and hoped that it worked. She didn't think that she smelled any different, but animals had more sensitive noses. When the requisite amount of time she had passed for a trip to the bathroom, she headed back downstairs. The family pointed her towards the hall and saying that Ladybug had already left to take care of things. Thank you again, she told them before following after Ladybug. You okay? Ladybug asked her when she got into the foyer, where her partner was putting Kim's sweatband on the banister. Yeah, I'm fine. Let's get this taken care of before Paris turns into a literal concrete jungle. Right. They went into the bakery to get a proper street view, and Ladybug sprayed the room with air freshener. To cover our scent, so he won't immediately smell us. Good idea, she complimented. Now we just need to figure out how to capture it. She looked out the windows and spotted an abandoned bus. Ladybug seemed to notice it as well, and they nodded to each other. She heard something and pushed Ladybug out of sight. He's coming, she explained. They moved through the bakery to the hallway to divert the villain. A small ladybug flew through the opening in the door frame, and Ladybug trapped him in a pastry box. Catastrophe batted the box out of her hands just as the panther exploded out of it. They turned and fled through the bakery. She was really glad that miraculous ladybugs would fix everything because she noticed the panther doing plenty of damage as he chased after them. They led him into the bus and they hid between seats before he caught up. The panther padded past them and they slipped to the front of the bus. Okay, which one opens the doors? Ladybug muttered, pushing buttons uselessly. The panther turned on them and Catastrophe blocked him from attacking Ladybug. Of course, nothing works. No keys. Then I'll just take it out, Catastrophe called, using her staff to try and strike him down. He transformed into a ladybug to dodge the attack, and then into a bear. She made a noise and dodged a swipe of his paw, sweeping her leg to try and make him lose his footing. He shifted the moment her leg hit his, and a sparrow flew between her and Ladybug before returning to his panther form. He lost his own footing and shook his head. Transforming wears him out, Ladybug gasped. She nodded and leapt over him, striking with her baton as she went. He dodged the blow and she called for a cataclysm before destroying the controls for the bus. The doors opened for just barely long enough as the machinery malfunctioned for Ladybug and Catastrophe to jump out of the confined quarters. A moment after they were freed, the engine blew and the bus went still. Great. Now we just wait for him to wear himself out and we can take his Akuma. Catastrophe laughed as they readied their weapons. The villain shifted into multiple animals in an attempt to escape the bus. But he eventually reverted to a panther and fell to the floor of the bus. Well, that... She broke off as the bus began rattling and the windows were filled with a leathery skin only seen in history books and movies. No way. Looks like... Ladybug groaned. They stepped back as the bus burst from the pressure of a giant tyrannosaur filling it. That doesn't count! The T-Rex... She whined. The T-Rex is extinct! Apparently those do count, Ladybug moaned. We need to hide. If Jurassic Park was right, those things can get pretty fast. It was the raptor that clocked the fastest running speed, Catastrophe pointed out. The T-Rex is only fast because of its leg reach. Big head, little arms, lots of teeth. But Kim could outrun that thing over a short distance. Okay, Dino Nerd, Ladybug joked. The dinosaur roared and walked through the remains of the bus. The pair of heroes made a run for it, and the ground rumbled as they were pursued. Come on, Catastrophe called, sliding between the dinosaur's legs into the shelter of a car. A moment later, Ladybug was beside her. We need to wrap this up. I'm running out of time. Right. Lucky charm, Ladybug shouted. A spotted carjack dropped into her hands. Okay, what the heck? Nothing popping out, she guessed. Well, what are those used for? The biting power of a T-Rex is nearly 57,000 newtons, according to the most recent numbers. Propping up cars, it's a carjack, Ladybug sighed. Are you just really into dinosaurs or something? Wait, propping things up, you're a dino genius, kitty. I try. So, what's the plan? We floor him and get past those teeth. She nodded and they went to work. It took a moment to get the dino floored. Ladybug rushed into the mouse, barely dodging the teeth. A moment later, the enemy was completely disabled and Ladybug was capturing the Akuma. They bumped fists and they fixed everything. So you're a massive dinosaur nerd. There was a time when I wanted to be a paleontologist. It's still something... She broke off as her ring beeped urgently. She checked to see that she was down to the last pad. Yikes! See you next time, Bug! She vaulted away, barely making it to the hotel in time to detransform. That was too close, she moaned, heading to her mini fridge to retrieve some cheese for Flag. Now, for that report. Chloe got up early the next morning and rushed to the school with her completed project in hand. She went straight to the science lab and sighed in relief when she saw Madame Mendelea setting up for the day. Your time in here isn't until third period, Miss Bourgeois. I know, she sighed. I just wanted to make sure you got my project before class, and apologize. I've been making Sabrina do my homework for a long time. I know it's wrong, and I'm trying to break from that. But Sabrina's so in the habit that you wanted to ensure I graded your work instead of Sabrina's, the instructor guessed. I had my suspicions, and the honesty is appreciated. I'll spread word among your other instructors. Thank you, but I'd like to apologize in person. Please don't penalize Sabrina if she turns in an assignment with my name on it. I'm the one that started this. Understood. Something's changed about you. That near-death experience on the second day of school kind of put things in perspective for me, she admitted. It was also a matter of trying to be worthy of being a hero, but that wasn't something she could say aloud. And okay. Those were shorter chapters, so well, shorter than the first two. Okay. Chapter 5. Le Mime. And actually, 1 second, my throat is hurting, so I will be right. I shall return momentarily. I'm gonna go get some water. If if you didn't already notice, I used the French names for the Akuma, not the English, because some of the English names are really junky. At least this isn't like my big rewrite where I'm actually doing the titles entirely in French. Either way, Chapter 5, The Meme. The show must go on as Catastrophe and Ladybug deal with a spurned actor. Chloe, is there a reason your grades are suddenly slipping? Chloe's father asked her as they sat together for a rare dinner. She worried her lip and took a big bite of her steak. Don't ignore me, Chloe. This is serious. Is it because I don't spend enough time with you, or are you in need of new clothes? And Daddy, stop fretting, she groaned. I was making Sabrina do my homework until recently, she confessed, bracing herself for a lecture. Why stop? Your grades are more important than her feelings, he chided. I thought your mother and I taught you better. Taught you. You're better than dirtying your hands with work. Chloe stared at her father in shock. He continued lecturing her on how she deserved anything she wanted, no matter who was hurt in the process. He carried on over the rest of dinner about manipulating things to her favor and never settling for a second place. It reminded her of the lecture her mother had given her so many years ago about her interest in dinosaurs. You understand, Chloe? He asked as he lifted the last bite of his steak to his mouth. I understand, she sighed, and I'm not hungry anymore. I'll eat in my room later. She put her fork down and left the restaurant. When she was in the privacy of her room, she sat at her barely used desk and pulled out her homework. Your father's a piece of work, Clyde commented as she started working on the assignment. No wonder you thought I was a bomb. Yeah, she sighed, tapping her chin with her pen. I've been kidnapped, shot at, and we've found bombs in my mail before, all to get at my father. This is his third term in a row, and I think he's already working on the next one. She sighed tiredly. She sighed tiredly and dug through her bag for a recently graded assignment. It was a low score, but her teacher had put plenty of notes about her structuring attached to the page. A flyer caught her attention and she looked at it. The school's janitor was starring in a play premiering under the Eiffel Tower that evening. She looked at her clock. What are you thinking of doing? It's a weekend. I have time to get these assignments done. I need a distraction. She sighed. She pulled out her phone and started to call Adrian. She hesitated on the final key. He's probably already going with our classmates, she mumbled, erasing the number. She looked over the flyer again to find a box office number and called that. She bought a ticket over the phone and started getting ready. It was a pretty mild night, perfect for an outdoor play premiere. She still dressed with the knowledge that she'd be outside after dark on a late September evening. She put on a pair of designer jeans and a pink cotton mini dress with long flared sleeves, finishing the look with a rhinestone-encrusted belt over the dress and pink wedge heels. She turned to examine herself in the mirror and nodded to herself. She flipped her hair and touched up her makeup before heading out. Oh, you have a secret date? Her butler laughed as he met her at the elevator. I need some air. I'll be walking, and I'll call for a car when I'm ready to come home. She sighed. When they reached the lobby, she checked her phone. The shipping notification for her recent order was still open in her messages. Oh, I ordered a computer that should be arriving today or tomorrow. There was a package in the mail today. I'll check it and send it to your room if it's yours. Thank you, she said lightly, putting her phone away. She headed toward the Eiffel Tower. She saw red and looked up to see Ladybug swinging toward the Louvre. She smiled and ducked into an alley. An even better distraction. I hate transforming. Plague whined as she opened her purse. Transforming gets you extra cheese, so shut up, she chided him. And claws out. She transformed and vaulted to a roof. After a moment, she caught up with Ladybug. What you up to, Bug? Catastrophe! Ladybug gasped, fumbling with the phone. Catastrophe caught it before it fell, and she recognized it. Isn't this that Alia girl's phone? She questioned, handing it back to Ladybug. Why do you have her phone? Well, it's complicated, and if I give you details, you could give too much personal information, and we can't know each other's identities, she guessed. Unfortunately, that told her enough. Clumsy Marinette must have accidentally deleted something Ladybug related, and was trying to record a new copy before giving the phone back to her best friend. Ladybug nodded a little. Yeah, she had a video of me for her blog, and I get it, Ladybug, she sighed. You don't have to explain. She pulled out her baton and used it as a smartphone to look up the Lady blog. There was a new post from that same day. Was it this? She asked, pushing play and showing the video to Ladybug. Oh my gosh, yes. She must have uploaded it before. She laughed. Ladybug Catastrophe put her baton away. I guess. She broke off as a sound came from the ground outside the Louvre. The pair moved to investigate. Oh no. An Akuma was destroying all of the flyers and posters for the play with an invisible sword. That's gonna be difficult if we can't see his weapons, she mumbled, realizing that he was probably a mime involved in the play. You think he's one of the actors from the play? Most likely. But I can't see why he's so upset unless he lost the part. Ladybug sighed. Either way, let's take care of this. I have a ticket for the show and I'd like for the show to go on. A police car flew into the air and the heroes went on the move. Ladybug made a web with her yo-yo to catch the car before it hit civilians, and Catastrophe pulled the officer out of the driver's seat. She got him to the ground and checked him for injuries. He thanked her, and she and Ladybug got to work. The mime had made the motion of drawing back a bow and arrow, and she shoved her part into the ground as an invisible arrow flew toward them. How did you know where it was? Feline hearing, she explained. She rolled out of the way of another attack. I can hear his attacks. You get the civilians to safety. Ladybug nodded and went to work. Catastrophe tried to keep the mime distracted while Ladybug got the area clear. She rushed him with her baton and he made the motion of slamming a door. She heard the corresponding clang and she stopped just before she ran into an invisible cage wall. Area's clear, Ladybug called, jumping toward her. She landed with a clank a few feet above Catastrophe's head. What the? I've been put in a kennel, she sighed. I'm stuck for the moment. Right. Ladybug leapt forward and Catastrophe kept a hand on the invisible bars in front of her. He made a gesture of opening a box and the bar vanished. Catastrophe smirked and stepped forward, finding her cage gone. She heard the clicking of a military weapon and she ran to pull Ladybug out of the line of fire. You're free! I think he can only mime one thing at a time, she explained. Holding Ladybug down as something whistled above their heads and exploded into a nearby building. That hearing of yours is handy. I wouldn't have noticed that until it was too late, Ladybug gasped. Yeah, let's get him while he's reloading. Those weapons take a good several minutes to reload normally. It wouldn't be a moment, since all he has to do is make the motions. They got off the ground and flanked him. He went back and forth a moment before firing at Catastrophe. She jumped out of the way as it whistled past and continued on her path. Finding himself cornered, the mime trapped them in another cage and fled. "You have some weird knowledge stores," Ladybug commented as they waited for him to finish miming a motorcycle into existence. He popped a helmet over his head and drove off as the bars disappeared. "And here's one of my own. I think the Akuma's in his hat, but not the hat itself." "Oddly specific. You recognize him?" A nod was her only answer, and they started the chase. "We should find the acting troupe. He's probably after them. They'll be on the way to the Eiffel Tower for their sound checks." They moved to the rooftops. They soon tracked down the bus and looked to see that the enemy hadn't caught up. "I'll protect the bus from the roof. You explain the situation to the actors." Catastrophe sighed as the bus stopped at a light. Ladybug nodded and they leapt to the bus. Catastrophe landed on the roof of the vehicle and readied her staff. She heard Ladybug get on the bus and the vehicle started moving. As they went, she spotted the mime on his invisible motorcycle on the approach. When he was close enough, he leapt off the vehicle and onto the roof of the bus. She heard the sound of a sword being drawn and she readied herself, closing her eyes to focus on what she was hearing. It was difficult to keep up, and she could hear every swing and was barely able to block each strike. The bus jerked to a stop, sending her sliding toward the front of the vehicle, locked in combat with the mime. He stumbled away from her, and she heard Ladybug's yo-yo whiz past her. She opened her eyes and looked to see that they were at the base of the Eiffel Tower. She moved to the ground, and the mime followed her. Ladybug caught his arm with her yo-yo as he tried to swing his sword at Catastrophe. "I don't know what's got you this violent, but I don't think your daughter Mylène would approve," she called. He paused but yanked Ladybug to the ground and untied his arm. Catastrophe went to help Ladybug, and she heard the distinct sound of something metallic. She looked to see the mime winding up to throw something. "Everyone clear the area!" she shouted as he threw his invisible object at them. She yanked Ladybug out of the way as the ground exploded mere centimeters from where they'd been a moment before. She looked around to see that no one got caught in the blast. "That's the third time," Ladybug sighed. "We're partners," she argued, "and I think it's high time we took care of this." "Right. Lucky charm." A shoebox dropped into her hands. "Okay, while you figure that out, I'll keep him busy," Catastrophe said lightly, rushing to engage with the enemy again, blocking his invisible sword. "Hey, mime!" Ladybug called after a minute. "Nice poster, don't you think?" Catastrophe looked to see that she'd somehow made the shoebox into a projector, covering the Eiffel Tower with the advertisement for the play. The mime lost interest in the heroes and slashed at the tower. It creaked loudly and started to topple over towards them. The crowd cleared out of the way, people screaming in terror. The mime held up his hands and mimed some sort of shield, stopping the tower. "Brilliant," Catastrophe gasped, fetching his hat with her staff. She handed the hat to Ladybug, and her partner pulled a photo out of a secret pocket. "So that's what you meant," she commented as Ladybug released the Akuma and captured it. She then cast miraculous ladybugs and everything was restored. Everyone reconciled, and Catastrophe bowed to Ladybug. I'll see you next time, Catastrophe, and thanks for saving my spot so much today." Ladybug laughed. "Like I said, we're partners," she said lightly. Ladybug smiled and vaulted away. Catastrophe took a moment to make sure things were settled before she went to a hiding spot to detransform. Chloe went to the box office and pick up her ticket, and when When the seating started, she found her seat, surprised to find that she'd gotten a seat in the front row with Marinette, Alia, and Milan. "I'm surprised to see you here, Chloe," Marinette said lightly. "I needed a break from home," she sighed. "My dad had dinner with me just to give me a lecture." "Must suck finally having consequences for being a jerk," Alia snapped. "More like consequences for trying to stop being a jerk," Chloe snapped back. "Sure you're trying to stop," the girl scoffed. "Once a bully, always a bully. Hi, Yuki." She started to say something, but she wasn't in the mood to argue with her. Instead, she directed her attention to the stage. She heard Alia questioning Marinette, and then Adrian arriving and commenting about sitting with his friends. She sighed and stood. "Adrian, you want to switch seats with me?" she asked him. "Sure." He got up and they switched seats. "Are you okay, Chloe?" "Yeah, I'm fine," she said, faking a smile. He frowned but dropped it as the lights around them went down. After the play, Adrian pulled Chloe aside, looking worried. She tried to ignore him and pulled out her phone to call for a driver. "We'll give you a ride, Chloe," Adrian sighed, pushing her hand down. "What's wrong with you? You've been acting weird all night." "Daddy gave me a lecture. He told me to keep being a bully," she sighed. "You can't be serious," he mumbled. "Everyone in class told me how horrible you were, but I don't see it." "Oh, I was the worst," she sighed. "And then I almost died, and I realized only my father would have missed me." "That's not true," he mumbled as his car pulled up. "You're like my sister. I would have missed you." "Really?" "Yeah. Has this been bothering you this whole time?" he asked as they got in the car and it lurched forward. "Yeah," she admitted. "So I've been trying to change and make friends, but I guess I was horrible for so long no one's willing to give me a second chance. And my father just wants me to stay like I was." "Well, I think it's great that you're trying. Eventually they'll see you can be cool," Adrian encouraged. She smiled brightly at him. And that's the end of that chapter, and I'm going to call this a session. So I will be back later for Final Fantasy XIV. My I'm itching to unlock the first dungeons. Um, so yeah. Otherwise, I will see you guys later for that. And as always, if you like my content, I haven't actually said this in a while, but if you like my content, follow on Twitch, subscribe on YouTube. Ko-fi donations are much appreciated. The links are on both of my pages. I am, and yeah, that's all the announcements. I will see you guys later. Peace.